The Senate is considering a bill to stop the payment and receipt of ransom for the release of any person kidnapped, imprisoned, or wrongfully confined. The proposed law prescribes a 15-year penalty for anyone who pays or receives ransom. The Terrorism Prevention Bill 2021, which scaled second reading at Wednesday's plenary, is sponsored by Senator Ezenwa Francis Onyewuchi, who raised the alarm that kidnapping has become a fast and lucrative business that has become pervasive and intractable, leading to violent crimes in the country.
Some payments lead to future kidnappings, and future kidnappings lead to additional ransom payment, and it all builds the capacity of terrorist organizations to conduct attacks. Mr. President, my distinguished colleagues, gut-wrenching as it may be, the wisest thing for government to do would be to keep an eye on statistics, because these show that buying out one victim strengthens and encourages abductors, kidnappers, and terrorist organizations, and thus puts many more people at risk. The continuous payment of ransom must not be encouraged. In addition, government should provide adequate security and strengthen the economy as a matter of urgency.
Payment of ransom is not good. But at the same time, we should encourage the security agents to use technology to track the bandits or the terrorists so that they can easily be arrested and be prosecuted. I believe if we do that, it will go a long way in solving the problem of insurgency, terrorism, and banditry in Nigeria.
A bill for an act to amend the Terrorism Prevention Act 2013 and for other matters connected there to 2021 second reading taken, and the bill is referred to the Committee on Judiciary, Human Rights and Legal Matters to report back within 4 weeks.
Well, for more on this, we're now joined by Senator Okpeyemi Bamidele, the Chairman, Senate Committee on Judiciary. Thank you so much for joining us on Newsnight.
It's my pleasure.
Well, from all indication, this seems to be a step in the right direction. But, you know, would you say that ransom payment is the major issue or driver of, kidnap for ransom in Nigeria?
Well, using the word major, I will not say that. It's not the major issue, but it's incidental, and it's also capable of encouraging the business, and it creates some potentials. When you allow a situation that makes, a business, so to say, for that matter, an entirely illegitimate business to become lucrative. It's a lucrative thing if upon, every adoption, they are sure that money would come. And ransom has been in all manners, in all forms of payment. Sometimes they ask for money. Sometimes we are told even state and non-state actors agree to buy buses, to buy motorcycles, to do all manners of things, in the name of paying ransom. So while we must encourage and ensure that government does everything possible to be able to deliver on its mandate as established in Section 14 of our own Constitution, which clearly states the primary purpose of every government is to provide security for the people and ensure welfare of the people. While you are doing everything possible in that regard, you also must put the legal framework in place to discourage anything that will make it lucrative for people to want to continue to abduct or kidnap people.
Well, a lot of people online, I was looking when the plenary ended, and there was this verdict or this statement that the Senate has just made this resolution, or it just passed the second reading. A lot of people online were saying that why will the Senate not think of punishing state and federal government for acts that lead into situations where people become kidnappers rather than finding jobs for them? If you can take that in 1 minute, we'll continue after the break.
Yeah, well, I'll put it this way. There is no state, wherever, or any community or any country anywhere in the world where government will still not have to deal with insecurity. You know, it's just the quantum of insecurity. It had always been an issue with us, even from the colonial days, you know, from our pre-colonial history. And it's just that it has grown worse by the day. Now, and that's why the law will always ensure, if our constitution is saying the primary purpose of government is to provide security and ensure welfare of the people, it is because it is assumed, it is understood that insecurity is always an issue that government will continue to deal with. When there was no Boko Haram, people talked about kidnapping. People talk of armed robbery. People talk of, you know, stealing, you know, in all manners. Okay. People talk of raping, yes. You know. So there will always be issues for government to deal with.
Okay, we'll take a short break now, Senator. Right. When we come back, we'll continue the conversation.
Welcome back. You're watching Newsnight. Our guest is Senator Opeyemi Bamidele. He's the Senate, Chairman, Senate Committee on Judiciary, discussing a number of issues with us. Well, let's even talk about, thank you so much for staying with us. How do you strengthen the law enforcement agencies in the fight against kidnapping for ransom? So many are saying that security agencies themselves have been compromised in a way that they actually enable and strengthen these kidnappers.
Well, I mean, there have been all manners of accusations and counter-accusations. But what is important is that there's a difference between what is and what ought to be. What is actually what the law governs, what the law deals with, the standard that is set up, the legal framework. While what ought to be is, you know, I mean, what should happen, the kind of moral standard, you know, which exists more within the moral regime, while what is exists within a strictly legal regime.
So what should be the ideal from the standpoint of the Senate?
The ideal, I mean, as far as we are concerned, now is you govern a society based on law, rule of law. But having said that, we are now in a situation where members of public, and when I say members of public, stakeholders, also have their own idea of what ought to happen, what ought to be done, based on certain realities of what they perceive to be happening. And that's why our law will have to keep changing. The whole essence of Parliament is to continue to review the law, know when to amend the law, know when to actually totally abandon, you know, or using the legal parlance, repeal a law and reenact such a law. And all these things will be driven by public opinion. All these things.
So when you're talking about public opinion, yes, public opinion is one that points to the fact that there was standing ovation for the Senate when Senator Smart Adeyemi stood up and was practically in tears about the state of the nation, and other senators joined in to say, this cannot continue.
Yes.
Since that time, what has happened? It seems like the senators come back to normal.
Especially when it comes to this issue of restructuring. Where does the Senate stand? You have the Senate President only yesterday saying those calling for restructuring are only calling for the secession of the country. Well, what do you make of that?
Well, I'll put it this way. Two things. The Senate President is like any other Nigerian. He's entitled to also have his own opinions. He didn't speak as the President of the Senate of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, holding the gavel. And that is not the Senate position, and it's not pretending that that is the Senate position. The Senate, and of course the House of Reps, as two arms of the National Assembly, are currently going through a process of constitution review, which will necessitate stakeholders coming together. On the 26th and 27th of this month, will be all over the country. There will be 2 centers in each of the 6 geopolitical zones. So, in 12 different centers, the National Assembly members, as elected representatives of the people, will be there with their counterpart from State House of Assembly, the governors, I mean, civil society organizations, stakeholders across the country, discussing all these issues. As of the time we're running our plenary session today, the Senate presidency called on all Nigerians who felt strongly about any of these issues to kindly ensure that, you know, they attend this, public hearing to be able to make their point. There's a procedure. By the time we are done with all of this, the memoranda and all the position will come back to a committee of the National Assembly set up on the review of the 1999 Constitution. And of course, the committees in each of the two chambers will compile the report and bring it for a final ratification on the floor. And if it is passed into law, addressing all of these issues, the bill for constitutional amendment will now have to go back to the State House of Assembly, and will need 2/3 of the 36 State Houses of Assembly, you know, to finally approve this before it becomes law.
That seems like a long process. It doesn't look like this will be done before 2023.
Well,
and Nigerians are saying, can we have restructuring before even talking about 2023?
Unfortunately, we're in a democracy, which is the ideal place we want to be. And when we're talking about democracy too, let me also define it. Personally, I feel that the level we are now is at the level of civilian rule. What we hope and pray to attain is full-fledged democracy, where you can really talk about rule of law and a democracy that is founded, you know, on all the settled principles. And we have transited from military regime, from military rule to civilian rule. We may be pretending to be in a democratic state, but definitely we are yet to attain that full-fledged, and that's part of the issues that we have. It is our law that will eventually get us there. And our constitution is very clear. You cannot amend any section in the constitution without having to pass through, this procedure. That is just how it is. Yes, we want to, personally, if you ask me, I stand up for state police. I do this on the floor of the Senate. I do it everywhere I go. I don't pretend about it. And we cannot play an ostrich with this. But for it to become practicable, you still have to amend our constitution, because the constitution does not make a provision for it. And to be able to do this, you have to go through this procedure for constitutional amendment. Same for the restructuring and every other thing that we're talking about.
Unfortunately, we've run out of time. But as Chairman Senate Committee on Judiciary, what's going on with that? Judiciary workers are still on strike, calling for financial autonomy.
Well,
very briefly,
left to others, that's a thoroughly unfortunate situation, because this is one strike that would have been totally unnecessary, could have been avoided. We have done what we were meant to do at the level of the National Assembly. We have amended our law, we have amended the Constitution. Judiciary has been granted autonomy. And this is already being implemented at the federal level. What is left is for implementation to be done at the state level. And I don't think there's any way anybody can run away from that. Okay. And granting autonomy to the judiciary or the legislation at the state level is not going to kill anybody, it's not going to hurt anybody. It will only make us have a better Nigeria. And it's part of the whole talk about restructuring that we're talking about.
Thank you very much, Senator Kwame Bamidele. Thank you very much for contributing to the thoughts and analysis today. Thank you.